Hi there, I'm Katie Wagner. Welcome to Social Media Help Desk. Today I'm here with our Director of Operations, Stephen.
Hello.
And one of our web designer developers, Angie. Hi. And we're here to talk about social media. This is the time every week when we chat about all the things that are changing in our world, because the channels change frequently. And we talk about tips and tricks that can make So if you're not consistent on a channel like Facebook, let's say, you post sporadically, you sort of don't get the reach or the viewership that you would because the algorithm likes for you to be consistent. Well, YouTube works the same way. And YouTube influencers, people who create a lot of content, have had to create a lot of content over weeks and months and years in order to amass their following. And it turns out that YouTube has decided some of them are getting burnt out. It's a hard job being a YouTube influencer. So they're getting burnt out. They need to take a break from creating all this content. And so YouTube has now allowed them, or is allowing them, to pause creating content, take a break, take a vacation, they're calling it, and then come back and have the same reach in the algorithm that they did before the break.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
It is really big, actually, because this is, like you said, every single social media channel always says consistency is key. If you want to beat the algorithm, if you want to be best, and show up and consistently, you got to post all the time, right? And I think that, you know, it's interesting that YouTube is actually sort of listening to their creators, because I think YouTube, more than any other channel, is really dependent on those creators, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. They can't afford to lose them.
No, they absolutely can't, because that's where their viewership comes from, their advertising money comes from, like all that kind of stuff. And so it's interesting that, you know, I don't know, I feel like there are these like back office meetings with all the like the YouTubers like getting together, like saying, YouTube, you need to like let us take a break, or we're gonna like we're gonna go on strike, like it's a little union or something like that. So.
I was looking to see if they said how long they allow them to take vacation. Like, do they get 2 weeks a year, or you know? But it doesn't say how long. Yeah, they're just allowed to take a break and put their things on pause.
Well, I think that it's, you know, if they're putting out videos, you know, 3 times a week or whatever their consistency is, I think the idea is that they're not going to be punished if, you know, they take a week off, or maybe only do 1 or 2 for a certain amount for a week or something like that.
Well, and YouTube is all about the new content going out. So I would think even if your reach is the same, to keep your customers or your fan base happy, you have to create content to a certain cadence.
Absolutely.
I know some of our colleagues follow YouTubers pretty religiously, and when there's not new videos up, they get a little antsy about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But this is good news for us as brands too, because sometimes it's hard to continue to put out videos week after week, and so maybe just do the best you can and keep it going. Yeah. All right, I like it. So our second piece of news today is about Facebook. There's always news about Facebook every week, but this week they've bought another app, and this app, I'm not going to say it right, it's called GrokStyle. GrokStyle?
GrokStyle.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. It's got G-R-O-K style, GrokStyle. And this is apparently the AI virtual shopper platform that is the one that lets you, if you go on like the IKEA website, you can see what the chair looks like in your living room if you upload a picture of your living room. It's that same platform. And so Facebook now owns it. Which is interesting because we're definitely starting to see the line between social media and e-commerce or online shopping kind of blur here, right? Yeah. So am I going to be able to do this on Facebook? Like if I see a product on Facebook, am I going to be able to try it on my face or in my living room or whatever using GrokStyle?
Maybe.
I think that's the future.
I think that's the way that they're going. They don't even want you to go to the client, to the actual website anymore. They want you to stay on Facebook to do everything.
Right. Well, Facebook wants to rule the world, right? Because they run on advertising, and if they don't get enough eyeballs. Sorry, we have to shift Finn. This is Finn. He's our agency dog. He always joins us for Social Media Help Desk, mostly because he will howl if we're all talking to each other and not to him. Yeah. So he's going to continue to take naps there. But yeah, they don't want you to go off onto their other places on the internet. You could get lost, right?
Yeah. They don't want you going to Amazon. They don't want you even going to their own website. They want you staying right there in Facebook.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of those, there are a lot of websites that sell a lot of furniture, you know, that are, you know, resellers essentially. They're not retailers. They're not the actual company that makes it. Not like IKEA necessarily, that do big business, you know. And I think having these types of interactions and different unique ways to be able to let people see what a piece of furniture or something that's very physical, what that's going to look like in their space. It's going to make it easier for them to feel more comfortable with the actual purchase, right?
Well,
have you guys ever used one of these before, like the virtual augmented reality stuff?
I haven't.
With furniture? No.
Yeah, I have. I do that all the time.
Yeah?
Because you're on
Do you?
Pinterest,
Okay.
yeah, and you find things, but you're not sure
Right.
how it looks, and so the ones I use most often are paint colors. You know, a lot of like Bear Paint or whatever has one that you can upload
Yes,
your
for
room
sure.
and then show which, make the walls different colors.
Mm-hmm.
But if Facebook starts to own this, or does now own this technology, think about all the clients that we work with that could use this. Like, what if they could show me how an outfit looks on my body type, or a
Right.
product looks on my face, or a hairstyle? There are those AI things that show you how a certain haircut looks
Right,
on your
right.
face. Like, it's all of that is now possible.
Yeah,
And you
definitely.
have to figure that Facebook's doing that to sort of get more of those brands on board with creating content for Facebook.
Right.
Because now they can keep them on the platform.
Yeah.
And we've seen with our clients that a lot of sales now happen through Facebook and Instagram. Instagram's owned by Facebook, so same. But there's a lot of shopping that goes on there. So
Absolutely.
this is maybe just the next step in that.
I agree.
Absolutely. All right, and then lastly, a piece of Snapchat news. And we were chatting before we came on. None of us are heavy Snapchat users, but maybe some of you are. And Snapchat is celebrating Black History Month, which February is Black History Month, in a pretty cool way. And they've gotten a gallery together of millennial Black artists, the artwork of millennial Black artists. And apparently, when you go on Snapchat and you go to the photos and you go to, which one is it? The rainbow colored lens in the lens carousel. So you get to the rainbow colored lens, you will be walking into a virtual gallery of millennial Black artists' work. And apparently it's pretty impressive. I haven't seen it myself, but people say it's quite immersive, this experience they've created.
Absolutely. Well, and it's really cool. Like, I think it's kind of goes actually along with the grok style,
Grok
right?
style.
Like for
Right.
Facebook, it's augmented reality,
Yeah.
right? And so it's an interesting thing that we're seeing more and more use of this stuff. But I think it's cool that they're doing that on there, especially to highlight, Black History Month. So,
Yeah, well, and think of all the possibilities there, right?
Of
Like
course.
tons of different galleries and different, even botanical things they could create, or outdoor scenes that you could just
Right.
walk into.
Like transporting you anywhere, pretty much.
yeah, I agree.
And virtual reality is sort of, I was going to say the future, but it's not, it's here, right? It's getting more and more popular, and a lot of brands are using that to create an immersive experience. So good for Snapchat. I'll have to go get one of our millennial employees in the back to show me how to use that so I can see it later on. Good. So social media is changing all the time, right? But one thing that doesn't change is that it gives you a way to connect with your audience that's maybe more powerful than a lot of ways we've had before, right? I don't want to knock websites, and you're a web designer, but a website is more of a one-way communication, where
Right.
social media is more two-way, right? And we've seen traditional media marketing like email blasts or direct mail postcards in your thing, and social now takes that to the next level in your experience.
Right.
But one of the things you have to have for social to work is fans, right? You have to have an audience to talk to, and social is one of those things where people opt in to your content. They have to like your page rather than just getting a direct mail postcard in the mail.
Right.
So Angie, you've been thinking a lot lately about why people do follow brands. Why do they opt in for that content?
Right. So it is, as a business owner, it's really important to understand your audience, and I think, so I've listed a couple things here. The number one reason, and this is my personally, I think it's my number one reason, but I think people come to your site come to your social channels for your deals. They're not only are they coming for that very first time to try to snag that 10% off, but every time they're thinking about buying another purchase, they're like, oh, let me go check on social to see if there's any deals going on, or if there will be, and then maybe I'll wait, or if there's any new products. I think anytime there's the opportunity to have any of those kind of deals, it's really important to kind of grab your audience that way. Maybe there's contests, there's like and retweet campaigns. There's a bunch of different ways that you can incorporate that throughout the different social media channels.
Well, it's what we were just talking about,
Right.
right? Social and e-commerce are linked, and so incentives, right?
Right.
If I can grab a promo code or see the latest product,
Right, and making it readily available too. So not only, so people are comfortable with seeing it, in the same place every time, or they know that like maybe it's an Instagram story and they say, I know every Wednesday they always like to hide in a promo code in their story, so I'm going to go. I personally am that person, so I know that I follow certain brands because of that. So
One of my favorite examples of this actually is Sprinkles Cupcakes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what they are? So those of you who are in Southern California, you know Sprinkles Cupcakes. Our friends across the country may not, but you should come visit and have some because they're really good. But Sprinkles does a good job with their social media, and one of the things they do that I love is called a whisper code.
Oh.
And on their Twitter, they will give out a code word every day, and if you go to the store and whisper that code word to the person behind the counter, the cupcake barista, they'll give you two. What? That's a thing.
Without sounding ridiculous.
Yeah, they'll give you 2 for 1, which is worth it every day of the week. I mean, anytime. So, but this is how they get a lot of Twitter followers, right? Because people key in because they want to see what the whisper deal is, the whisper code. I mean, I've just heard this from friends. I'm just saying. But like, if you have this code, then you go. And I think sometimes people think, well, Sprinkles isn't e-commerce, and doesn't social work best to drive sales for e-commerce? But this is a really good example of how they're using it to get people into their brick and mortar store.
Right.
You know? So I think I'm agreeing with you. Deals.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What's next?
Looking at the client interaction. So when you go to, say, a Facebook page and you see that there are a bunch of comments in there, but there are a bunch of comments from different users, and there's no response back. It doesn't even mean that, like, if they're unhappy or they are happy. If there's no response from the client or from the actual business owner, that kind of shows there's maybe a hands-off approach to their social channels. It's always good to see that they do care about their clients, and they're reaching out. They're like, oh, thanks for the feedback, or, you know, great to hear. You know, things like that I think show the client that they are a business and they care about all of their users.
Well, it's that acknowledgement, right? That interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you went into a brick and mortar, a restaurant or a retail shop, and you talked to somebody and they didn't talk back.
Right.
Like, would you stay?
Right. Absolutely not.
No, you'd leave, or you'd never come back, right?
Right.
Well, and I think also, like, the first time someone makes a comment and you don't comment back, they're never going to comment
Right. It's already
again.
bad off the first
Yeah. Like, you know, because they're excited enough and willing enough to make a comment, which is not like a small thing. For some people, they're commenting on everything, right? But that's like, you know, 1% of the population.
Right.
For most of people, it's going to take quite a bit to compel them to post something in a public forum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't write back, then they're probably never going to write on your page again. So you've really missed a huge opportunity.
Well, and I've had really frustrating experiences where, you know, I need some customer service answer, right? I have a question. And these days, we're kind of trained that social media has that immediacy. This is where you get answers. Yeah. So I've gone on Facebook pages and written questions, and nobody ever answers.
Right.
And not only do I not shop with them, but now I'm irritated. I'll probably unfollow them.
Right. Well, you know, it's Facebook. It's something that they're probably on, so they're there, and they're just not answering your questions.
Right.
Right? Do you think they see my questions?
Well, that's how it feels anyway.
Right, yeah. Definitely.
If that's the case or not. But
yeah, it doesn't feel good.
No.
It doesn't feel good. Okay, so you've got to talk back. This is why your brand it follows you so that you can engage with them.
Right.
Okay, I like it. What else?
And then put yourself in your audience's shoes. Like, are you producing content that you yourself as the audience would be engaged with? Like, think about the blog post. Based on your audience, is it the kind of information that they want, or is it information that's going to turn them away? So think about, like, some of the things are, you know, did they come to your website for deals, hours of operation, or are they trying to understand your product better? All of those kind of things, I think, will help drive what content you post, and to help get those same, you know, same people coming back for more on your social channels.
Yeah, it's funny, you guys weren't there, but this morning we had a meeting with our content editors, and we were talking about content, social content that educates people.
Right.
And like, we work with a lot of brands that like have so many fascinating things about them that we need to tell those stories on social. And we were talking about best practices for how to do that. But one of the products we work with is a vitamin, right? And the vitamin goes under your tongue. It's dissolvable, which is great, and it's good for people who have or elderly, have trouble swallowing, or maybe they're autistic and their kids can't do that if they have autistic kids, or even bariatric patients, right? Can't sometimes get sick if they swallow a big vitamin. But we were talking about, how do you tell that story, and what kind of content do we create that that is interesting enough to people that they take the next step, right? Because vitamins, you know, maybe sexy, maybe not sexy, but like, how do we tell the story that this is a better way to take vitamins?
Right.
And that is just a small example, but I think sometimes the businesses that come to us have just been posting for the sake of posting, and they're not thinking about, what do we want people to do next? What do we want them to learn from this? You know, what is our content accomplishing, really?
Right.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things we always say is take your top 10 most frequently asked questions. What are the top things that you are answering all the time to, clients, customers, whoever it is, and write a blog post on each of those top 10 questions, right? Or write a social media post on each of those questions, because that is going to answer a lot of questions for people, and that's going to basically move people down through that, sales funnel, whatever you want to call it, right? From being someone who doesn't know about you, doesn't know about your business, to now knows more about you, knows that you know what you're talking about, and is already answering the questions that you are already thinking about, or maybe even answering questions that you haven't thought about. And so if you can do that, that's just a great way to educate your audience and tell and speak more about who you are.
And when we're talking about content calendars, sometimes we talk about make a list of features and benefits of your product or your service, right? Like what do you have to offer? And then how can you create posts that talk about those things? And it doesn't have to be salesy, right? It could be, one of the things we like to talk about is that we're a team, right? We have a large in-house team and we all work together on clients. And so we could illustrate that by taking pictures of us at brainstorming meetings and putting those on our social. We don't have to say there will be 18 people at every meeting you come to, right? But we say, hey, look at this meeting with the client, and there's 18 people at the table.
Right.
And I think getting creative about the way you get that information across to your audience does keep them engaged, right? And then my other tip, sorry, I'm stealing your thunder, but I got wound up about this. Because we just had the meeting about it this morning. The other thing is, what do you want them to do next?
Right.
Is it an engagement post where you just want them to like the photo and feel good about you, or do you want to drive traffic to the website?
Right.
Do you want them to answer some kind of question in the comments there? What does that exchange of knowledge look like? And then that leads back into your number 2. If you're asking them to interact, you got to interact back.
Correct.
Right. It's funny, we had a client once that had been running these contests on their social media, and they've been asking people to answer all these trivia questions, and people had done it, and then they never picked a winner or took it any further. And they're like, look at all this engagement. I'm like, you guys,
you have
to actually see it through.
Right.
But they thought they'd done the hard part, and we're moving on. So, takes all kinds.
Yes,
That's why we exist. It's okay, we can help with that. All right, any other points we should be aware of?
No, I just think about your deals, the client interaction, and think about stepping in your audience's shoes.
What are they going to want to know about your business? Great. Okay, so these are good tips. We try to put these tips into practice, but sometimes it's harder than it may seem.
Yeah.
And you were going to talk today about some mistakes or bad habits people have when they get in social, because it's one of those things where when you're kind of all in and you're trying so hard, but it may go a little off course, and we see that a lot with people who come work with us.
Yeah, I know, and I think it's easy. I mean, some of these, there's a lot of bad habits that people have with their social media, and it's okay. I mean, these are sort of habits that a lot of people fall into, but it's good to be aware of them so that you can look beyond them and actually start being a little bit more strategic about your social media. So let me give you an example. So one of the first things that we see everyone talking about, which is something you shouldn't focus so much on, is what we call vanity metrics, right?
Yeah, ego.
And these are ego metrics. Yeah, these are how many followers do you have? That's thing number 1, right? And then if you go even a step further than that, what's your reach? How many people are you reaching, right? And so that goes along with advertising, right? And a lot of other things, right? Organic reach, but also paid reach, and then the followers. So these two numbers, a lot of people put a lot of focus on, and they put a lot of energy and time into building these numbers, but they don't always mean that you're getting good results on social media. And so instead of focusing on those numbers, and those are kind of a byproduct if you're doing a good job on social media, but really think about what are the results that you're getting, right? And what are your goals? It depends on your goals. Do you want a lot of interaction? Okay, great. You can get a lot of interaction without having a lot of fans and without having a lot of reach, right? Is your goal to drive sales on your website? Great. How are your sales doing, right? Because your fans could go up, your reach could go up, and your sales could go down. And if you're focusing too much on your fans and your reach, but not your bottom line, then that's going to be an issue. So there's some things you got to look at here beyond just those vanity metrics.
Well, and I think there's a lot of reasons people have high fan numbers, right? I mean, maybe you gave away an iPad and people joined so they could win it, but then they don't care about your business.
Right.
right? And we typically say 3,000 fans who won't hire you or buy from you mean nothing.
Right.
300 fans who will is a lot more powerful,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I think you're right. I think it's really easy to get caught up in the ego of that. Like, why do I only have 100 fans, you know? But if all 100 of those fans were using your services or referring you to people, social is working. No big deal, right? That is a win.
Sure.
So, yeah, try to see it for what it is.
Yes, absolutely. And well, that tells me, you know, my next point, which is whether you're misreading your analytics, right? That's another bad habit, because, you know, you do want to look at what's happening beyond just, you know, number of fans and followers, but also looking at traffic back to your website. And so a lot of people, though, when you look deeper into the analytics, it just seems like a lot of numbers, and not only like the social media, like Facebook metrics, Instagram metrics, you know, things on Twitter, but then even like something like Google Analytics that's tracking the analytics on your website, right? Those, I mean, there's just like, it's a endless black hole of information, right?
It can be.
It can be, yeah. And so you really got to know like what it is that you're trying to look at, right? And so if you're looking for success on social media, one of the big things that you should be looking at is tracking how many clicks you're getting from individual social media channels back to your website, right?
How many people are visiting? Yeah.
Yeah, you could, because again, if you've got, you know, 1 million fans, but you're getting 10 clicks back to your website, then those 1 million doesn't really do a whole lot for you, other than look kind of like you got 1 million fans,
Yeah,
right? And same with you know, same with things like if you have an e-commerce site, like how many of those people that are actually coming from social media are actually checking out and buying something, right? And because if that's not happening, again, you could be getting 1 million hits to your website and none of them buy anything. What is that really doing for you? So,
well, and this is Angie's wheelhouse a little
Yeah.
bit, right? Because we talk, one of the things I like to look at when I'm looking at analytics is time on site.
Yeah.
Because I could be driving a ton of traffic back to the site, but if they stay 5 seconds and then leave, those aren't people that are shopping with me, that are hiring me.
Right.
So that could indicate maybe a problem with the website.
Right, yeah, it can open up a lot of different things that could be wrong with the website or that need to get changed, or, you know, maybe something isn't quite working and we need to adjust the page so that people are actually following through with the clicks. So I think it's super important to make sure you have those set up properly, because there's different ways to set up goals and things like that within Google Analytics. So reading it alone is difficult, but then also having it set up properly is another
So the information
another
works
layer,
for you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and maybe setting aside, like, what are the questions I'm trying to answer? And then figuring out what analytics tell you that.
Right.
Because you can spend hours clicking on things in Google Analytics, and it's fascinating, but what did you learn?
Right.
Right? It's you've got to know, like, what is it I'm trying to figure out?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if they're not staying on the website, problem could be the website, it also could be it's the wrong audience, right?
Sure.
Like, maybe you're talking to the wrong people and you've got to change your content strategy. There's a lot of detective work, I think, that goes into figuring out what's wrong once you sort of have identified a problem, but you don't know that unless you're looking at the right metrics, not the vanity ones.
I agree with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good. So make sure you're, you know, looking at analytics, and then lastly, and this is probably the most important one, is failing to tell a story on social media. This is a bad habit, because a lot of people get wrapped up into things that will get engagement, get clicks, get likes, you know, and they're not really thinking about what it is that content is really saying about their brand. And we can sort of touch on this earlier, but like it's really important that you need to tell your story, right? You need to find things about your business that you want people to know about it, things that make you different, things that make you unique, and things that make you better than the competition, and talk about those things. And so I think that, you know, a lot of companies, they get out there and they post maybe pretty pictures, or they post things in order to get engagement, and they try to do things that go viral, but you know, in the end, a lot of viral things don't really have that much of a real impact.
Right.
On the bottom line.
On the bottom line, okay, it's cool and it looks nice and sounds nice that this thing went viral, but in the end, did it really translate to more sales, right?
Well, you just push the viral button, right? And then that happens.
Well, we weren't going to tell them about it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We get asked about the viral button quite a bit. But
That's
you're right.
the viral button that doesn't exist, just so we're clear.
Right. But you're right. Even if something does go viral, what does that mean for your business?
Sure, yeah.
What does that mean? And, you know, this is what we were talking about earlier. Telling your story means talking about your specific business and I think a lot of people fill their social media with great information, but it's all third-party industry news, or it's just stuff that any of your competitors could also share and it would be valid. And that has value, but it's not about your business. I feel strongly that your social needs to be authentically about you and what makes you different. Your brand, your company, your team, whatever that is, that's telling your story. And so use content that nobody else could use, right? It's for or about by you.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? What's a good tip for how you start telling your story?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is to identify who your audience is and what you're trying to sell them, right? What need are you satisfying of theirs? And so if you can do that, then you can start composing what your story is, what makes you unique, the history, the background, and then going from there. So I think that's a good place to start. And then, again, once you figure out, okay, here's what I'm going to do to tell my story, here are the results that I want, that's where you start looking at the analytics to say, okay, we need to start tracking these results because ultimately that's all I care about and less about, fans or, engagement, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And selling your story is what's going to keep clients coming back for more.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
See how it all works together.
How that works.
Yeah. It's all interrelated. Good. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back here this time next week, every Tuesday at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. And if you have questions in the meantime, you can always email us, tips@kwsmdigital.com. Or there's a couple places you can get more information. One is our blog. We blog 8 times a week. That's at kwsmdigital.com. The other is our YouTube channel, which is KWSM Team. And we have past episodes of this show plus other tip videos. And if you want to learn more about YouTube or you're thinking about creating videos for your business, we're actually holding our YouTube boot camp this Friday from 9 to 12. You can join us live in Aliso Viejo, California, or you can join us via webinar from anywhere else. So all the information's on our website, and that's kwsmdigital.com. In the meantime, I hope you're having a good week, and we will see you soon.